Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to do a little review on transformations. Y'all learned this yesterday in lesson 3.1. Today we just wanted to expand on that and make sure you really understand transformations. So when you're looking at the parent function, that is the most basic form. So for linear, which is what we look at most of the time for transformations, your parent function is f of x equals x or y equals x. F of x and y are the same exact thing, so these are the same equation. So for your slope-intercept form, because there's nothing on x, there's an invisible 1 in front, which you see here, and there's a plus 0 at the end for your y-intercept. So your slope is 1, your y-intercept is 0. That's why this starts at 0 and it goes up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, because that's your slope. So your three transformations that you can have two transformations on slope. If your slope is negative, it's going to flip over the graph. So instead of this going up, it's going to go down the graph. 1 second.
Teachers at this time release bus drivers beginning with A hall upstairs, B hall downstairs, C hall upstairs, I hall downstairs. Thank you.
So that's what the end of the day sounds like, in case you wanted to know. So your negative on your slope is going to flip your graph the other way. So instead of it going up, it's going to go down. The actual number m controls the steepness. It can make it steeper or it can make it flatter, depending on the number. If your m is greater than 1, it's going to be steeper. If your m is between 0 and 1, not less than 1, but between 0 and 1, it's going to be flatter. If it's less than 0, that means it's negative, and that's your flip. That's when it's going to reflect. The b at the end, the y-intercept, controls if the graph goes up or down. So right now, this one's 0. If we were to make it plus 1, it would move up 1. If we were to make it minus 5, it would move down 5. Okay, so when you're looking at negatives on your slope, negatives on the slope are going to flip the graph. So just like I drew up there, the regular graph is supposed to go up, the parent function. But if it's negative, it's going to turn around and it's going to go down. It reflects it. So how we write that is all we do is write reflection. Anytime you see negative on your slope, you're going to write reflection. Not negative on the y-intercept, but negative on your slope, on the m. We write reflection. Just like we talked about a second ago. If your m is greater than 1, so 1.5 or 15 or 100, that makes your graph steeper. It's going to make it closer to being vertical. So if it's 3x, we write it 3 times steeper. Went through the R there. Let me fix that. If it's between 0 and 1, these are mostly going to be your decimals and fractions, but you have to make sure it's a decimal or fraction that is less than 1. Like 2.5 is greater than 1. That would be steeper. But for these, if we just had 0.5 or 1/5, that's going to be flatter. It makes it go more horizontal, more closer to the x-axis. So instead of going straight through the graph, it's going to be closer to the x-axis. And we write that 1/5 times flatter. So if it's greater than 1, it's steeper. If it's between 0 and 1, it's flatter. If it's negative, it's reflection. So if we had y equals negative 3x, the negative is reflection. The 3, that's greater than 1, so that's 3 times steeper. If we flip that and we did, let's go down here, y equals, let's go 1/2 x. That there's no negative, so it's not a reflection. And that 1/2 is times flatter because it's between 0 and 1. second, the bell's coming on.
Teachers, release the remaining bus riders, A hall downstairs, B hall upstairs, C hall downstairs, I hall upstairs. Thank you.
Okay. So if you're looking at your B, which is your y-intercept, these are going to be your vertical shifts. It's going to move your y-intercept up or down the y-axis. So if it's a plus B, plus is going to move up. So if we have x plus 3 like this one, instead of starting at 0, we're going to go up 3 spots and start at 0, 3. How we write it is a vertical shift up 3. Vertical is your up and down, and then it's shifting your y-intercept up 3 spots. If your y-intercept is negative, this is going to shift it down. So this x minus 2, instead of it starting at 0, we're going to go down 2 spots and start at negative 2. And how we write that one is vertical, because it's up and down, vertical shift down 2. So if your y-intercept is positive, it's up, vertical shift up, and whatever the number is. If your y-intercept is negative, it's vertical shift down 2. So if we had x minus 5, it's a minus, so this is going to be vertical shift. It's minus, so we're going down 5. We don't write minus 5. We just write 5. That down takes care of the minus, so we don't have to write minus 5. If we had y equals x plus 5, we would write vertical shift, and because it's plus, we're going to put up 5. Perfect. Okay, on the next page, just a few examples before you start your practice. Just full out examples, look at your slope and look at your y-intercept. If your slope is negative, we're going to write reflection. If your slope is greater than 1, we write, one second, let me fix that. We write whatever the number is times steeper. If your slope is between 0 and 1, we're going to write whatever the number is times flatter. If your y-intercept is positive, we write vertical shift up whatever the number is. And if your y-intercept is negative, we write vertical shift down because it's negative and whatever the number is. You can always use your calculator if you want to compare it to the parent function, which was y equals x, and you can look and see exactly how it changed. Did it reflect? Did it get steeper, flatter? Did it go up or down? You can always look at your calculator for that. So for this one, our m is the number that is with x. So we have 2/3, that's your m, and b is the number by itself, so plus 5. So your transformation for 2/3, if you plug that in your calculator, you're going to get 0.666. That is less than 1, between 0 and 1. So that's going to be 2/3 times flatter because it's less than 1. Your b was plus 5, so because it's plus, it's going to be up. So vertical shift up 5. For example 2, our m has 2 things on it. It has a negative and a 4. That negative means something different than the 4. The negative means reflection. The 4, well, that's greater than 1 because we already took care of the negative. We're not looking at negative 4 as a whole, just 4 because the negative is reflection. The 4 is greater than 1, so it's 4 times steeper. And your b, the number out there by itself, that's your y-intercept, -2. Because it's negative, we're going to vertical shift down. So we write vertical shift down just 2. We don't put the negative on it. The down takes care of the negative. So remember, if your slope, the number with x, if it is negative, it's a reflection. If it's greater than 1, that number times steeper. If it's between 0 and 1, it's that number times flatter. If the number by itself, your y-intercept, that b, if it's positive, it's vertical shift up that number. If it's negative, vertical shift down that number. So y'all try to practice.